Good afternoon, New York. Good afternoon, Queens. My name is Tom Gretsch. I run the Queens Chamber of Commerce with a wonderful staff of people. Welcome to one in a series of ways we can help out our small businesses in Queens County and beyond. A brief advertisement about the Queens Chamber of Commerce. We've been around since 1911, and since then we've educated, we've advocated, and we've networked. And the manner in which we did that in 1911 and the way we do that today, especially in the last 7 or 8 months since COVID, is a stark difference from old to new. And one of the things we're going to focus on today is with one of our new major corporate members, our friends at Fiserv. Very pleased to have them on board as a member and helping us grow our small businesses. You know, in Queens, we have 6,000 restaurants, a plethora of small businesses. In fact, of our membership, 90% have 10 or fewer employees. So they're always stretched with their marketing dollars. They're always trying to find a way to do more with less. But regarding the restaurants, of those 6,000, we estimate up to half of them may never reopen. And so right now we're trying to save as many as possible from going into despair and darkness. In the meantime, we're also working equally as hard to make sure that all the businesses that survive, including our restaurants, have ways to do better. And so it gives me great pleasure to introduce our friends today from Fiserv, led by Stephen Matt, Global VP of Digital Marketing. Stephen, welcome. Thanks so much for being here. And I appreciated the behind the scenes banter before we got started. Looking forward to having you on the program today. Thanks so much.
That was great. Thank you so much, Thomas. It's great to be here, guys. Really appreciate it. And I want to mention that I am a local New Yorker. So I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I venture over to Queens all the time. So there's a really good chance for all the people that are on this call that own businesses, I may have actually patronized your business at some point in the past. So
great.
I have been teaching this class since 2014. In fact, Thomas and I were just talking about that before we all joined here. And every time I teach this, I have to say it gets better and better because I take the feedback that I get from everyone that's participating and I fine tune and optimize the presentation. So I really welcome the feedback, but I will say that definitely save it for the end. So that way we can kind of get through the presentation. So if you guys do have any feedback, jot it down in a piece of paper. And at the end, we'll definitely have time for a Q&A where we can talk about everything and answer some of the individual questions that you guys may have. All right, so I'm going to just jump right in. So my name is Stephen Matt, as Thomas said, Director of Digital Marketing at Fiserv. I have an MA in marketing from NYU and a BA in communications from Pratt. You know, college degrees are great, but really I think what, you know, the value that I bring is the experience that I've had actually working as a professional for the last 20 years in digital marketing for small and large businesses. Some of the smallest companies you can imagine to some of the largest you can imagine, like Fiserv, which is, you know, a Fortune company. So the information you're going to learn here today is specifically geared towards small businesses. And a lot of the information I'm going to share with you guys is highly actionable, which means that by the end of today's class, you guys should be able to take what you learned today and immediately implement it and start seeing results, right? The next day, within about 24 hours, you guys should start seeing results from the stuff that you're going to do today. So I've taught over 100 of these digital marketing classes in New York City. And recently since March, I've been doing these, you know, obviously over Zoom because of COVID. And it's been interesting to say the least to do these classes that way, but it's been still very effective. And I think the response has been great. So, all right, so I'm going to go to this next section here. A couple of things I want to cover that I designed specifically for these classes since March are some things that you guys can focus on in relation to the current situation that we're all in. Obviously, businesses in New York City have been severely impacted by COVID, but there are some really incredible things that you guys can do. And I'll give some examples of businesses that I have, you know, met with recently and sort of in a way given advice to. And one of which was a nursery, a plant store in Greenpoint. It's called Tend Greenpoint. And these guys are a fantastic small locally owned business. And I'll call out some specific ways that they've used digital marketing to help keep their business running. So number one, definitely have a website So that way you guys can drive traffic to your site and actually encourage people to purchase online instead of having to come in the store. So just a way to reduce in-person contact. And I'll talk a lot more about that today. The second thing is to optimize for search engines. Obviously, having a website's great, but if no one can find you online, there's really no point in having a website, right? So we'll talk about optimizing your website for search engines and how you can start to rank in the first position, or at least on the first page, to start to get more traffic and encourage people to shop your business online, or at least call you on there to make an appointment to see you in person. The third one is selling gift cards. And again, this is a really clever idea. I did not invent this. This was something that one of my friends who owns that nursery came up with. Essentially what he did when he shut down is he reached out to all of his previous customers that he had email addresses for, and he couldn't operate his business for the first couple months since he was shut down. And so what he did to stay in business is he actually offered gift cards. So what that meant is that was revenue coming in right away in return for, to sell future products. And I thought that was really clever. So that may not be something that every business can do, but most businesses, I think, can find a way to offer gift cards to existing customers. It's starting to look like perhaps maybe, especially in New York City, that the worst is behind us. Hopefully we don't go through another lockdown, but in case we do, I think that's a really clever idea, to increase your revenue for your business immediately, but then also, provide value for your customers in the future. Number 4 is social media. Obviously, everyone, uses some form of social media these days, and we'll talk a lot about how you can leverage content to promote your brand and drive business on social media. And then the 5th one is emails. Email marketing is still one of the most popular forms of digital marketing. And if you're not currently growing your email list, I really encourage you to start doing that. We're going to look at a couple ways you can do that through your website and through your store if you have a physical location, because offering opportunities for customers and prospects to give up their email address for something in return is a really great way to grow your email address, your email database list. So we'll talk about ways of doing that today. And then reducing touch points in store. And obviously that's where, our product at Fiserv comes into play. We have a POS terminal called Clover that does a lot to actually reduce touch points in the store. So if you still have to engage in direct face-to-face contact with customers at your location, Clover is obviously an amazing opportunity, way to do that because you don't have to actually touch anything, right? So you can actually you don't have to touch someone's credit card. You don't have to exchange any money. You can tap, dip, or swipe and accept payments that way. So we'll touch on the Clover solutions toward the end of this presentation. I'll share some other features that those POS devices offer. All right. So what you're going to learn today, number 1 is how to acquire new customers. Obviously, that's one of the most important things that business owners want to do, is to acquire new customers. And the second one that we're going to look at is how to keep existing customers coming back. Because obviously that's a lot cheaper than acquiring new customers. If someone has already purchased from you, you've already got their contact information, hopefully, or at least you have the opportunity to acquire their contact information. And that's essentially free to message to them, right? That's now your email address, your phone number that you can use to reach out to that customer to encourage them to purchase more of your products or services. So we'll look at both of those things today. All right. The way I want to break this down is by discussing the difference between goals, strategies, and tactics. So a lot of business owners, when I talk to them, they start out and jump right into the tactics, right? Obviously, that's an easy thing to fall into because that's the exciting stuff, right? That's what it all comes down to. That's SEO, it's social media, and obviously social media is a really fun space to play in. There's lots of new social media platforms that are emerging all the time, like TikTok and Snapchat. So a lot of businesses see that these new social media platforms are emerging and they immediately jump onto them and think that they have to join them and start promoting their business on those social media platforms. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's actually not the case, right? It may be for some businesses, maybe that is the appropriate social media platform for you to jump onto. But for the most part, it really depends on who your customers are, right? So one really quick example of this, TikTok and Snapchat. is primarily users between the ages of 13 years old and 22 years old, right? So if that's not your target demographic, that may not be where you want to spend your effort promoting your business on social media, right? So it's not immediately that when a new technology emerges that you have to jump onto that and spend your time and effort promoting your business there. That's just not the case, right? It all comes down to who are your customers and where are they spending their time? So we'll talk a little bit more about that today. But the purpose of this is to illustrate that it's not all about the tactics. It's really about the goals and then the strategies. And so let me break this down using the example that I gave in the previous slide. So for the first example, we're talking about how to acquire new customers, right? So that's your objective. That's the thing that you want to achieve. And so the strategy that you could use to achieve that goal would be to increase discoverability online, right? And this is actually what we're going to look at today in this webinar is how to do that, right? So your goal is acquire new customers. The way you're going to do that is to increase your discoverability online. And then the tactics or the sort of set of tools that you're going to use in that strategy to accomplish that goal are the following. So you're going to use SEO, Google Maps, Apple Maps, Yelp, ads, and social media. Okay. So the tactics are really dependent upon what your goal is and the strategy that you use to employ that. So let's look at one more example just to illustrate this. Keep existing customers coming back, right? So let's say that is your goal. And in fact, this is one of the goals that we're going to go through today. The strategy that you could use to accomplish that goal would be to improve the shopping experience, right? Both in store and on your website. And so the tactics that you would use to accomplish that goal would be rewards, something called line busting, which if you've never heard of that, I'll discuss that in a little bit, email, and then social media, right? And actually you'll notice there's one channel or tactic that exists in both of these boxes, right? You guys see that? So social media is actually great for acquiring new customers and also getting existing customers to come back, right? So it really depends on what your goals are, but the main point here is that the goals are what you want to do, the strategies are how you're going to do it, and the tactics are the tools that you'll use to do it. And it's always important to start with your goals first, and then define your strategy, and then choose the appropriate tactics, right? And more often than not, I see a lot of business owners jumping right to the tactics, and they sort of disregard the strategies and goals. And when you do that, you sort of don't really know what the appropriate tools are or tactics are for your goal, right? So that's why it's important to start with the goals and strategies first. All right. So I want to discuss something called the hub and spoke model. This is a really fundamental concept within digital marketing. And essentially what this says is that it's really important to have a website as your central hub. So think of it as like a bicycle wheel, right? The hub is your website, and the spokes are all the ways that you can generate traffic to your website. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have Etsy and Amazon and eBay and selling on social media and selling on Pinterest as ways of generating revenue and selling your product and services. Those are all great. Those are actually fantastic ways to do that, but they're better suited for discovering, right, your brand, encouraging prospects to discover your brand. But when it comes down to it, you want to drive the traffic to your website, right? And the reason for that is that you can control the conversation on your website a lot better than you can, for example, say Etsy, Amazon, or eBay, right? So if you're selling on any of those other platforms that are out there that's not your website, you're surrounded by your competition, right? So if you're selling jewelry, for example, on Etsy, which is a really popular platform for sort of self-made, handmade goods, that might be something you want to consider as a way to help people discover your brand. But if you're choosing to sell exclusively on Etsy, you're missing out on a really big opportunity, because when someone's on Etsy shopping for jewelry, they're seeing a ton of other competitors that are next to your business, right? And so that's going to detract from the actual conversion opportunities for your business. Instead, if you can get them over to your website where it's just your products or services, you're going to have a lot better time of actually converting them as a customer, right? The other reason having a website is really great versus all those other platforms is that the expenses are lower. So with Amazon, Etsy, and eBay, there are seller fees, right? So for eBay, for example, I think the last time I checked, I think it was as high as 6%. So for every $100 that you earn on eBay, you have to pay eBay $6, right? And then on top of that, there's the payment processing fee, right? There might be 3.5% for, whatever payment processor they use. And that adds up very quickly. That's a lot of money versus your website where you don't have seller fees because it's your site. And the payment processor, well, you get to negotiate that because that's your site. So if you want to go with Fiserv for payment processing, or if you want to go to Chase, or if you want to go to Square, or whatever it is, you can call up those various companies and negotiate your rate depending on how your business chooses to do business. Okay. So a lot of reasons that you should have your own website, but the goal here is to drive traffic to your site at all times. And that's where you want most of the conversions to take place. Number one, because you're going to get higher conversion rates. You're going to sell more because you're not surrounded by your competition, and you get to control the conversation. And you also get to obtain the person's contact information after you make that sale, which is not always true on Amazon, Etsy, or eBay. And number two, it's going to be cheaper for you because you're not spending the extra money. Okay. And so in addition to that, there's really three ways that you can drive traffic to your site. So number one is what's referred to as owned traffic, right? That would be sending out emails. That would be distributing content through your blog. That would be posting videos on YouTube, or posting social media posts on social media. That's owned media, right? The next one is paid. And that's essentially advertisements, right? So if you're doing banner ads on Google, or if you're doing Google searches, that would be something that you pay for. So you have to pay to get that traffic to your site. The owned is free because you own those platforms and you're not paying anyone, you're just driving traffic naturally. The third bucket is what I really want to focus on today, and this is what's referred to as earned media. So paid, owned, and earned. Earned is the best because you didn't really do anything to obtain that, right? This is, think of it this way. It's sort of like the digital word of mouth, right? So when people are talking about your business, your products and services, because it's so good and so persuasive that they are doing the work for you, that is what earned media is. And so some examples of earned media would be showing up on the first page of Google, right? When Google decides that your website is the most relevant for a particular search, that is what's referred to as earned media. And that's what SEO is. And we're going to talk a lot about SEO in a few minutes. But earned media is really important because it's free traffic for you and it's very persuasive. People trust and respond to word of mouth and earned media a lot better than they do paid and owned. It's just a lot more persuasive to get people to your site that way. Another example would be someone writing a review for your business. So a lot of the websites out there like Yelp, Google Maps, and Apple Maps, and obviously there's a bunch of others, are a form of earned media because your customers are writing you those positive reviews and encouraging others to go to your website and purchase your products and solutions. Okay, so earned media is very powerful and very persuasive, and what we're primarily going to focus on today. And another reason I want to focus on that, not just because it's so effective, it's because it is the least expensive, right? So as small business owners, I recognize that you guys may not have a large marketing budget. You may not have even $500 a month to spend on ads. You may not have $500 a month to spend paying a content writer to write a blog post or a post on social media for you, right? So focusing on earned media is going to allow you as the business owner to do the most with what you have with your limited to $0 budget, all right? So to jump into the next concept I want to cover, it's called the conversion probability matrix. And I promise this is the most complicated slide in the entire presentation. So after we finish this one, it's all easy after this. And what this essentially says is which channel in digital marketing is the most effective. All right. So on the left side, we have what's referred to as the prospect quality. And obviously the prospect is your future customer, right? And when I say prospect quality, what that means is that how likely is that customer your ideal customer, right? So is it someone that is very likely to buy from you or sign up for your services? So the higher up you go in that chart, the more likely they are to be your ideal customer. The lower down they are, the less likely they are to be your ideal customer. Now on the bottom axis, we have what's referred to as conversion probability. And that basically, a conversion essentially is an action that your prospect or future customer takes on your website. So conversion can essentially be a purchase, most commonly, or it could be a video view, or it could be an ebook download, or it could be a form fill on the site to inquire about registering an appointment with you. It can take any form that has value to you, and you get to define what your conversions are in your site. A lot of companies obviously have multiple conversions. There's ways to buy on the site. There's ways to contact people. There's ebooks to download. So you might have multiple conversions. But for this demonstration, let's focus on the purchasing as the primary conversion. All right, so that's what's on the lower axis there. And obviously, the further you get to the right, the higher probability you have of actually getting that person to convert or actually purchase from you. All right, so let's start with advertising on the left side. And advertising overlaps with social media. So it goes from the bottom to the top, and it actually goes on top of the social media. So it spans in prospect quality from really not so great to really good, right? And the reason for that is because there's a lot of different ways that you can engage with advertising as a business owner. You can choose to hire someone to do your advertising, right? If you're hiring someone, an expert, they obviously know what they're doing. And so they're going to find the right prospects for you, right? So the prospect quality for hiring an expert with advertising is going to be very high, and it's going to be at the top of that chart, right? Now, towards the bottom, if you, for example, try to do some advertising yourself, maybe you've never done Facebook advertising, maybe you've never done Google AdWords before, and you try to do that yourself, your prospect quality for advertising might be at the very bottom, right? It may not be very good because you may not know what you're doing. So that's why it's sort of hit or miss with prospect quality. Now, on the conversion probability spectrum, your advertising is really not so great, right? This is the same reason that I choose not to walk down Times Square, right? I hate advertisements. I don't want to see it. I just find it very annoying. I never click on banner ads when I'm browsing the internet. I'm not one of those people who clicks, and most likely you guys probably are not either. Most people do not respond positively to advertisements. If advertising is done really, really well, and they just hit it out of the park with an incredible design, and they hit you with a message that is right on time, it's exactly what you're looking for at the exact moment that you happen to be online, and it's at the right price, right? Then maybe you're going to click. But that's really, really rare, right? And most companies do not get it that good. Most companies engage in advertising for brand awareness purposes, right? So getting people to buy through an advertisement is actually pretty difficult to do. And so the conversion probability for advertising is very low. So that's why it sits all the way off to the left side. Now, on the other hand, we have social media sitting at the top. And the reason social media is so good for prospect quality is because people choose to follow you because they inherently want to learn more about your business, right? So when you get a new follower on your social media account, that's essentially someone saying, hey, I like what you're doing. I like your company, and I saw your post, and I want to hear more about what you have to say, right? I want to see more of your posts. So of course they're going to be the right prospect quality. So the more followers you get on social media, right, those are your ideal prospects inherently because they themselves have volunteered to sort of follow you as a brand, right? Now, in terms of conversion probability, social media is not that great, right? Because we all understand that when we're on social media, we're there for laughs. We're there to engage with friends. We're not there typically to purchase products. Now, social media is an excellent way to get people to discover your brand, but it may not be the best way to get them to actually purchase in that moment when they're there, right? So if you think about when you're using social media, maybe you're waiting in line at Starbucks, maybe you're on the subway, maybe you've got some downtime and you're just trying to kill some time and you're on your phone scrolling down. How often is it that you actually saw something on social media and then made a purchase right then and there? It's pretty rare too, right? So the conversion probability for social media is still very low. I'd say it's slightly higher than advertising, right? Because advertisements are pretty random. But social media, sometimes if you're following a company, you're like, okay, yeah, I saw that product a couple weeks ago. I follow the company. Now it's time for me to buy. So maybe then you buy, right? So for the most part, social media is still pretty low in conversion. The one that's slightly better is email. So similarly to social media, when you sign up for someone's email list, you're effectively saying, hey, I want to hear more information about your products and services. So when you send me an email, I'm very likely going to open it, right? And that's true for a lot of people. I think we sign up for email lists to get a discount, to get access to exclusive information. And when we see those future emails come through, we're pretty likely to take action on that because we volunteered, we gave up our email address for that company to receive more information. So email is pretty good. The conversion probability is pretty high and the prospect quality is pretty high. And there's a great book by Seth Godin that I think you guys should all check out. It's called Permission Marketing. And it was written maybe 5 to 10 years ago, still highly relevant. It's not just about email, but it is something that I recommend that you guys all check out and listen to. It's also available in audiobook, which is why I say listen to it, because I tend to listen to books these days more than I actually do any reading. But it's called Permission Marketing, and it's by Seth Godin. And I think he's a local New Yorker as well. So pretty cool guy, interesting digital marketer, and has been around for a long time and highly relevant today. And that has a lot to do with email, but he also touches on some other things as well. So that leaves us with the big red circle in the upper right corner, right? That is search engine optimization. And the reason that SEO is so high in conversion probability and prospect quality is that when you are searching for something on Google or Yahoo or Bing, you're actively looking for that thing, right? So if I'm searching for Mediterranean restaurant Queens, I am actively looking for a Mediterranean restaurant in Queens in that very moment. So when Google does their job and returns search results that show me all the Mediterranean restaurants in Queens, right, I am very likely to click on the top result, or maybe the second, or maybe the third, or maybe if I'm not finding what I'm looking for, maybe I'll go, down to number 5 or number 6. But typically what I'm going to find is going to be in that first page of Google, and I'm going to click that and actually go to that restaurant or make a reservation or call to make a reservation. And that's why SEO is such a high conversion probability channel. And it's also very high prospect quality because it's inherent, right? You're looking for that thing in that very moment and Google is showing it to you instantly, right? So it's not like advertising where advertisers are just hoping that they hit you at the right time. What are the chances that I'm walking down Times Square or I'm on the New York Times and I see an advertisement for a Mediterranean restaurant when I just happen to be looking for one right now? The odds of that happening are so small, right? And that's why the advertising channel sits so far to the left and search is so perfectly positioned in the upper right corner with conversion probability and prospect quality. So we're going to focus a lot on SEO today. So I want to dive into some of the details. Hopefully that slide wasn't too much, but I think it really sets the stage for why SEO is so important. All right, this is an incredible statistic, and I'm still blown away by this every time I read it, but 93% of all online experiences begin with a search. I mean, that's incredible. So when people are looking to buy something online, or even not online, if they're looking to go somewhere physically, 93% of the time, they are going to a search engine like Google, Yahoo, or Bing. And primarily it's going to be Google, right? So 93% of the time. That means only 7% of the time they're going to Yelp, or they're going to social media, or they're going to Twitter, or they're going somewhere else online, right? That is a huge number. And it really speaks to why SEO is so important because so many people use search engines to find what they're looking for and to make purchasing decisions. So what is SEO? Search engine optimization is the practice of improving and promoting a website in order to increase the number of non-paid visitors the site receives from search engines. So the key here is non-paid. And I'm going to show you guys what I mean by this. So for some of you that are seeing this, that know this, you're like, duh, of course I know that. Everyone knows that. But there are, in fact, people who may not know this. So I think it's very important to point this out because there's going to be a couple light bulbs going off here. I want to point out that, actually, this is a really bad example. Let me see if I can find a better example online really quick. Forgot that I took out that example online a while ago. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen really quick with you guys. I'm just going to shift. Oh, actually, I think you guys can still see what I'm sharing right now. So what I'm showing you guys on Google, and I'm going to zoom in so you can really see this. Oftentimes there are advertisements at the top of Google, right? And so that's indicated by that little word called the ad word at the top right there, right? It used to be green, now it's black. Google changes it often. And then there's others that are down here, right? And they don't have that ad icon at the top, right? So this is something that this company paid for. This company, bigleap.com, paid Google to be in that top position, right? So that, in fact, is not what we're talking about when we talk about SEO. Okay, so I think that's an important distinction to make, and I really want you guys to understand that that is something that that we really are not focusing on in terms of. Sorry, I'm going to stop sharing really quick and then jump back to the presentation. And there we go. I'm going to share my screen. There we go. Okay. Tasneem, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Okay, thank you. Okay, we're back. So I just wanted to show you that live demo because I think that's, thank you, Chaka. I think that's very important because most people do not realize that you can actually pay Google to be in the first results, but it's very expensive to do that. I mean, I'm talking, depending on your industry, it could cost you thousands of dollars a month to appear constantly in that top position. So what I'm referring to is not the paid advertisements on Google, but what I'm referring to is the organic, the free stuff. And so the screenshot that I'm showing you here, they don't have any of those ads there, right? The little ad words, the little ad icons. It's all organic. So this is all free. These people did not pay Google to be in these positions. So when you type in optometrist Brooklyn, these are the results that pop up. So parkslopeeye.com is number one. So let's just say, for the sake of this demonstration, that 1,000 people search for optometrists Brooklyn per day. Okay, I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but I'm guessing it's probably around there. New York City is a big city. And so Brooklyn's obviously one of the biggest boroughs. And so it's very likely that number is pretty accurate. But let's say it's 1,000 people. The important thing to know about Google search results pages is that the first position receives 33% of all the clicks. Okay, so what that means is that this first position at the top right here, parkslopeeye.com, is receiving on a daily basis, anyone going to do the math really quick? 333 page views or visits per day, right? That's a ton of free traffic. So if you're in that first position and you get 1,000 searches per day for optometrist Brooklyn, and you're at the number one results in Google, you're getting 333 clicks per day to your website. Now, again, that number may be off, maybe it's 500, but still that's a lot of free traffic, right, per day. The number two position gets about 17%. The number three position gets about 11%, and it keeps dropping off from there. So the entire first page receives about 92% of all the clicks, which means that page 2 to infinity, all the O's at the bottom of the page with Google, all of those websites receive collectively 8% of all the clicks. So if you're sitting here wondering, you know, yes, maybe I'm on Google, I have a website, why am I not getting the traffic? Well, it's very likely that you're not ranking on the first page for some really popular keywords. All right, that's most likely the reason you're not getting the traffic that your business should be getting. And I'm going to talk about all the things that you can do to your website to increase that ranking, so that way you can hopefully appear on the first page of Google. And there are a lot of things, but we're going to cover like the top 10 most important things that you can do. Okay. And the other important thing to say is that, and I hear this is a common question. There might be someone chatting this right now. Well, I do rank in the number one position. I rank for my business name, right? But think about that for a second, right? Yes, that's important for you to rank for your business name. That's a good thing. But how many new customers are searching for your business name? Not many, right? Because they don't know you. They've never been to your company before. So unless you have a really strong brand presence, and a really strong word of mouth strategy where all your existing customers are just talking about you all day long and everyone's searching for you, no one's going to be searching for your business name, right? So yeah, you may tell me that you're on page 1 for Google, and it may be for your business name, which is great. That's important. But what you want to rank for, and this is really the most important thing here for SEO, you want to rank for your general business category. So what is the word or words that describe what type of business you operate, right? And so for eye care, for optometrists, it's optometrists, right? Paired with whatever specific geographic location you're in, right? So that might be Park Slope, it might be Upper East Side, wherever your business is, whatever type of business you are, plus your geographic location. Now, obviously, if you're an e-commerce store and you sell sunglasses all over the world, you don't need to rank for that geographic signifier, right? You don't need to have New York or Upper East Side in there. But I'm assuming that most businesses that are attending this webinar are local businesses, and you guys typically serve local customers in your area. So an easy way to start ranking is to choose your neighborhood, right? Because if you're like, for example, a locally grocery store or a local restaurant, there's going to be a lot of people, depending on which neighborhood you live in New York City, there's going to be a lot of potential customers searching for restaurants, Park Slope, right? Especially people who are just moving there or who want to try something new. That's a really common way to sort of start ranking for your business, is to choose your general category and then pair that with your geographic location, okay? And so the bigger the geographic area, the harder it is to rank for that keyword. So if I were to replace Brooklyn with NYC, you're going to have a harder time. There's more competition because you're competing against a greater number of businesses. So the more specific you get, the fewer number of searches, the easier it's going to be to rank for that keyword. Does that make sense? So think about that as I'm going through this presentation. What are those keywords that your business wants to rank for? Right? Don't make it so broad where you're competing against all the restaurants in New York City and all the businesses in New York City. Make it specific enough that you're still going to get some traffic, right? So don't say, for example, don't say restaurant on Manhattan Avenue in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Not many people are searching for that specific keyword, right? That's too specific. Try and be general enough that it describes your general area, but also enough so that you're actually going to get some traffic volume. Okay, so that's a little SEO. So I want to dive into what are the specific things that you can do to rank on Google. And so this crazy looking thing that you're looking at here is a spider. And Google has these things called Google bots or Google spiders. And what they do is they scour the internet at all times looking at various websites. And they analyze every aspect of that website, looking for signals that give clues to what that website is about. And then those spiders go back to Google and they input all that data into Google's algorithm. And that is what Google uses to determine where to rank websites on the first page, right? So that example I gave right here about parkslopeye.com, whatever they're doing for SEO, they're doing a great job. These spiders are analyzing their website and reporting back to Google and saying, hey, this website is about eye care and it's in Brooklyn, so let's rank them number 1, right, among many other things. So that's how these spiders sort of engage with websites. And you don't know when they're on their website. They're probably coming and going all the time, and we never know. And they're looking at your website and reporting back to Google's algorithm. And there are over 200 things that these spiders are looking at. Number 1 is what's referred to as a backlink. And if you've never done any research on SEO or backlinks before, a backlink is essentially another website linking to your website. So if you're a restaurant in Queens and you're lucky enough to have gotten a review in the New York Times, or let's say Time Out or some other popular magazine in New York, and they linked to your website from their website, that is a backlink. Right. And that's essentially a digital version of word of mouth for your business. So what's happening there is that these spiders are seeing that, right? They're seeing, oh, hey, New York Times just linked to Astoria Seafood, right? I don't know if you guys are from Queens, you've probably heard of Astoria Seafood, one of my favorite restaurants in Queens. I think it's fantastic. And I think the New York Times actually did write an article about Astoria Seafood at some point in the past. And that is a fantastic backlink for Astoria Seafood, right? They didn't ask for it. They didn't pay for it. And it was something that they earned. So again, that's another form of earned media that they earned. And that is what's referred to as a backlink. And we're going to talk about how to get backlinks further on in this presentation, but that is by far the #1 ranking factor that you can actually control for your site. There's another really important ranking factor that I didn't put on here that's also very important, but you can't really control that too much. And that involves how much engagement you get on your website. So when people come to your website, are they staying there for a long time? Or are they going there and leaving after 10 seconds, right? So engagement is a really important ranking factor that you should pay attention to. So you can control that to some degree, but it's more about are you providing information that people are looking for? Do they find your information helpful? And so an example of that would be, do you have videos? Do you have content that people want to read? Do you have engaging images and icons on your site? Is your site organized in a way that's intuitive and makes sense? Or is it complicated and people get confused when they go there and they don't know where to find anything, so they leave, right? So engagement is really important to focus on. And that's something that I didn't include on here because it's not really something that has specifically to do with SEO, but it is an important ranking factor. On the left side, these are things that are really sort of beyond your control also. So domain age, the reality is that you purchased your domain when you purchased it. You can't really control that, right? So all things being equal, if you have a website that is 20 years old versus a website that was created yesterday, the one that was purchased and created 20 years ago is going to outrank the newer one, okay? So domain age is important, and you should, if you don't have a website yet, I guess the point of this is that you should get one now, right? Because there's no time better than right now to actually start your website, to start accruing the time in Google's mind. The other one is the keyword in your domain. And now I'm not encouraging you guys to cancel your current domain and buy another one that has a keyword in there. But ideally you would want to have optometry or Brooklyn or optometrists or eye care inside your domain. So actually part of your domain. So it could be, going back to that example right here, parkslopeeye.com. They've got the word eye in the domain, right? So that's a positive thing. The next example below is urban optical, right? They've got optical in the domain. So while that's not the exact keyword, Google still is smart enough to know that, hey, this website's about optometry, right? And you'll actually notice that with a lot of these that are ranking on the first page, they almost all have something to do with vision or eye care or eyes in the domain. So that is important. So if you're thinking about purchasing a domain for the first time, consider that, because that is going to help you rank. Domain penalties. Okay, so this is a big one. And I want you guys to be really careful as you start getting more involved in digital marketing. A domain penalty is a really bad thing. So in the world of SEO and digital marketing, there's what's referred to as white hat and black hat, right? The old cowboy days, the black hat person. The guy wearing the black hat is the bad guy. Guy wearing the white hat is the good guy. And the same is true for SEO, right? You don't want to engage in black hat SEO. And what that essentially means is that you don't want to do anything that's unethical, right? You don't want to try and game the system to try to trick someone. And so I'll give you a couple examples of things that I've seen or heard of other businesses doing. Number one is that businesses often try to purchase traffic, right? So you might go online, you might go to this company called Fiverr.com, F-I-V-E-E, or Fiverr.com, called Fiverr.com, 2 R's in there. And you can actually purchase traffic, right? That's not a good idea, right? Fiverr is great for a lot of things: graphic design, flyers, website creation, excellent place to go for all that good stuff. But they've also got a section on the website that's kind of shady, and I wouldn't really recommend purchasing traffic. That's never a good thing to do, because if Google finds out about that, they could penalize your domain, right? So there's what's referred to as traffic farms. And a lot of these traffic farms exist in countries like Russia, India, Pakistan, and they literally have people in a giant room with a bunch of computers. Imagine like a call center type place. And all they're doing is getting paid a couple cents per click to go to your website. right? That's all they're doing. They're not real customers. These are just people that are getting paid to visit your website. And that's what's referred to as a click farm. And that's not a good thing to do, right? It's fake traffic, and it means you're trying to game the system in some way. So avoid that. Avoid paying for backlinks. You should never pay for backlinks. If anyone says, hey, I'll give you 10 backlinks for $1,000, run away, because that's definitely a scam and it's not going to work. And you also risk being penalized by Google. Okay. So that's what's referred to as domain penalties. There's a lot of ways your domain can get penalized, but as a general rule of thumb, if it sounds unethical in some way, it probably is. So you should avoid it. Okay. All right. Now on the right side, there's a couple other things that I want to mention. Number one is the keyword in your title tag. Now this is next to backlinks and engagement. This is probably the number 3 ranking factor. And it's also one of the easiest things that you can do. Okay. And I'll show you what a title tag is in a second, but just know that that's very important. The next one, actually the next couple are pretty important here. So keyword in the H1 tag, and I'll show you what an H1 tag is in a second also. And then you have keyword density, and keyword density is just how many of the keywords, or how frequently do you use your keywords throughout your website, right? If you only use it once, it's not very dense. If you use it 3 or 4 times per page, that's pretty good. That's more dense, right? So you want to use your keywords or variations of your keywords as frequently as possible throughout your website. And the next one on the list is content length, right? So a lot of artists fall into this trap. My brother is a ceramicist. He's an artist in Portland, Oregon, and he makes ceramics for a living. And even though he's my brother, and I try to tell him all the time, Daniel, you should focus on adding content to your website. He doesn't listen to me, and he doesn't rank on Google, right? So if you search his name or ceramics Portland, he's not going to show up. And the reason for that is because he values aesthetics over the marketing side of things, right? And there's a lot of companies that might need to weigh those two things, right? So if you're a photographer, for example, or an artist, you might not want a lot of text on your website, right? You might want the visuals to just speak for themselves, right? But you've got to weigh that. Do you want to rank on the first page, or do you want, with text on your website, or do you want just images and no text, right? So there's a value judgment to be made there. And I would argue that the most important thing is business, right? I mean, if you want to sell your work, you need people to visit your website, and therefore you need to rank, and therefore you need content on your website. So having a lot of content on your website is actually very important to helping you rank. I'm not saying just put words on your website for the sake of having words. Obviously, it's got to be relevant. Obviously, you've got to be helpful and provide value to your customers and explain what your business is about or your products and services. But all things being equal, having no content versus having content, you're going to do much better if you have content on your website. Okay. The next one here at the bottom right is what's referred to as page speed. Now, if you've ever been to a website that's very slow to load, typically what happens is you get frustrated and you just leave, right? I mean, I do that all the time. If I'm shopping around for a product or service and I'm clicking off of Google, going to a website, and the website doesn't load, within 3 seconds, I'm just going to go to the next one in the list, right? And that's a ranking factor. So Google takes note of this too. So if your website's having problems and it's loading slowly for some reason, maybe it wasn't a month ago, but it is now, that's a concern for you, because that means that not only are you annoying your customers or your potential customers, but these Google spiders are paying attention to your page load speed, and they're going to report back to Google and say, hey, this website's loading in 10 seconds. Let's de-rank this website to page 50, right? Where no one is ever going to find you, right? So the best websites on the first page always load instantly, right? They always load within at least 2 seconds. So that's a really important one, okay? So I'm sure you guys have some questions about a lot of this stuff. I'm going to dive into each of these in a few seconds here. But what I want to show you right now is, once you've identified what your keywords are that you want to rank for, there are a couple places that you can insert them, okay? So I'm going to show you where to insert your keywords. Number 1 is your title tag, and number 2 is your description tag, or I'm sorry, your H1 tag. So let me get into that right now. I'm going to jump ahead. And if you can see my screen, what this is showing is the title tag, okay? And you guys recognize what this is, right? This is the big text that appears on Google, right? So when you search for optometrist Las Vegas, for example, this is one of the search results that pops up. And the purple text there, or blue text if you haven't clicked on it, is what's referred to as your title tag. And the most important thing for you guys to understand is that you have control over what words are used in your title tag, and each page on your website can receive a unique title tag, and you get to edit that, right? So you can go into your website right now, whether you're using Squarespace, Wix, Shopify, or WordPress, and you can edit your title tag. And that is precisely where you want to include your keywords, right? So what I said before about Optometry Brooklyn or Restaurants Brooklyn, this is where you insert those keywords. So once you've identified what those keywords are, you go into your website editor and add them into your title tag. And right around that same area where you're going to edit your title tag, you can also edit what's referred to as your description tag. And the description tag is the gray text that sits below, okay? And that's also editable. And so you should do both of those two things. And then there's something what's referred to as the H1 tag. And this H1 tag is what is on each of your pages, or at least it should be. And essentially what H1 just means is header 1. So header 1 comes from, H1 comes from like Microsoft Word. It just means it's the biggest text, the most important text on the page. And again, those spiders are looking at all this information. They actually look at the H1 tag and say, what is the H1 tag on this page, right? And they say, oh, well, it contains something about eyes. It contains something about vision. Well, this website must be about optometry. So let's rank it on the first page when someone searches for optometry. So you see what I'm saying? Like Google's paying attention to everything that you're doing on your website. And these are the strategic locations that you need to be paying attention to and inserting your keywords into, okay? So let me just go back. I'm going to mention a couple things about title tags really quick here. So just to reiterate, every page in your website receives a unique title tag. Don't make it the same for every page. Every page is a unique opportunity to rank for a different keyword. And a good example of this would be if you sell multiple products or services, right? So a financial company, for example, if you sell financial planning, you would have a whole page just about financial planning, right? It would have a couple paragraphs, a couple images, H1 tag. In the title tag, you would have the words Financial Planning Brooklyn, right? Or something like that. And maybe another service you offer is taxes, right? So you would say accounting and taxes in Brooklyn as your title tag, for example, right? Maybe that's not the best one, but that's something like what it would be. And then you would have paragraphs about accounting and taxes on that page. So every page you should have a page for every product and service that you offer, and the title tag should be unique for each one of those and relate to what that page is about, okay? And then the other thing that you need to know is that there's a character limit for these too. And if you go over that character limit, Google might decide not to rank you because you're not paying attention to like what fits within the character limits, okay? So that's pretty important as well. So for title tags, it's 65. So stay below 65. And for description tags, it's 160. So make sure you stay below 160 for title tags. H1 tags, it can be whatever you want it to be. There's no limit. H1 tags are just whatever looks good on your website. Okay. Okay. So before we dive into this, again, the last point that I touched on here was page load speed. So before we get into the specifics and checklists that you can actually do for your website, I do want to do a quick exercise with you guys really quickly. So I want you guys to go to, and you can use your phone for this, go to websitescore.org and then type in your website and type in a keyword that hopefully you guys have been thinking about up to this point. So remember, again, the keyword is not your business name. It's the category of your business. So if you're an eye doctor, it's going to be optometrist, right? If you're a Middle Eastern restaurant in Queens, it's going to be Middle Eastern restaurant Queens. So it could be a word or words that you want your business to rank for that is not your business name, okay? So fill out that quick information. This is a free service, so there's no, like, this is a company that's just available out there and you guys can use it for free anytime. It takes like 15 seconds, and then you'll want to check your email to get the reports. And it's going to do a whole report analysis on your website, which is pretty cool. And then in the chat window, I want you guys to chat me how many seconds it's taking your website to load. So one of the big numbers that's going to appear in this report is going to be the number of seconds that it takes your website to load. And I want you guys to chat me in Zoom how many seconds it's taking your website to load. Okay, so let's give ourselves about not 5 minutes, that's too much. 2 minutes for this exercise, and then we'll continue on. Okay, so I'm going to look for responses here to see if you guys have anything coming in. Gail, you asked a question about content. I'm just going to answer that really quickly while everyone else is doing this exercise. So Gail asked, content on your website. Do you mean content about your company and services or blogs? I specifically mean content about your products or services, yes. It could also be about your company, but that's not really going to help you rank that much. You really want to provide information content about your services or products, yes. And yes, it could take the form of blog content, but most often it's going to be in the form of content on your products or services page. Yeah. Okay, I'm looking at the chat window. 15 seconds. Edmund, really? Uh-oh, we got to fix that. Jacqueline, I think that might be the website score that you're looking at, 59. Okay, Norma, good, 3 seconds. That's not too bad. We should aim for under 2 seconds. I'm going to talk about how we're going to do that. Jacqueline, 3.82, nice. Okay, better than 59, better than 59 seconds. I'd be very scared if your website was loading.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, all right, good. So, but yeah, we could still improve that a little bit. Okay.
And can I ask a question?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, one that I got like a 27 good signals, 31 issues found, 59 page grade. What that means?
Yeah, great question. So there's probably a lot of numbers and information on that report. So essentially there's two big numbers. There's the seconds it takes your website to load, which we're talking about right now. And then there's a website score. And that score is out of 0 to 100. So the higher the score, the better. And that's a score that's put out by an organization called Moz, MOZ.com. They're sort of like sort of objective, non-biased SEO company that rates websites. And essentially what that does is it says that, hey, your website is doing okay, right? So you want that score to be in the 20s or above, right? So I think 59 is actually pretty good. That means you're doing most things right. Very few companies ever achieve anything in the 90s. So even like New York Times or Google has a score of like 95, right? So no one's perfect on there, but the higher the number, the better. Yeah. And then there's also a lot of other helpful information on there that you guys might find. So, okay,
Thank
good.
you.
0.26 seconds for Trang. That's great. That's really fast. Mimi has 2.2. That's not bad. Slightly over 2 seconds. Okay, good. So we'll talk a little bit about right now, how do you get that number down? how do you reduce the page load time on your website? The number one way you can do that is to reduce the image size on your site. I guarantee that most of the problems that everyone's having that Mary, your website in 19 seconds, it's mostly because of large image file sizes. So if you have I'm sorry? Jackie, did you say something? Okay. So yeah, if your website's loading in 19 seconds, that's most likely because it contains a lot of large image file sizes. And so if you know someone that knows how to use Photoshop or any type of image resizer, that is probably the best way to go. You can hire someone to do that really cheaply, $5 to resize all your images. Should take them less than a day to do that. And they'll give you new images that are sized appropriately, that still look good. And then you would upload those new images on your website. And that would be a way to reduce your page load speed on your website. Okay. Okay. Good job. So if you guys have any questions about that towards the end, let me know. So I'm going to give this analogy that I think sort of illustrates the point of why this is so important. Okay. So in the same way that when you're selling your house, you want to make sure that you clean it up first, right? Before you invite people over to take a look at your house to sell it, or to come over for a party or whatever it is, inviting people over for a family gathering, you want to make sure that you get it organized and clean. The same is true for your website. You want to make sure that it is organized, optimized, and functioning quickly, and everything is in order, okay, before you invite traffic over. So before you start doing SEO, before you start doing advertisements, email, social media, sponsorships, anything like that, you want to make sure that you optimize your website first, right? And so I put together this really helpful checklist for you guys. And these are best practices for optimizing your website. So I would literally just go step by step here after this webinar, and you guys can do all these things in your website, like within the next couple of days. It should be relatively easy for you guys to do. Number one is identify what is the keyword that you want to rank for. So I think most of you by now have probably given that some thought as we've been going through this webinar, and may have come up with a keyword or keywords that you want to rank for. So great. There is a tool that you can use that Google created called Google Keyword Planner. And essentially what that does is if you're not sure if your keyword or keywords has enough searches, like maybe you think maybe not many people are searching for it, well, you can actually test that and actually see how many people are searching for your keyword by typing it into Google Keyword Planner, and it'll tell you. And then it will also give you ideas on what other keywords you could be using, okay? So that's a great free tool I recommend using. Once you've identified your keyword that you want to go after, you want to put it into your title tag, your H1 tag, your description tags. Maybe you want to write a blog post about it, and you want to put it in your body copy. And body copy is just the copy that appears on your products and services page, okay? So those are the places where you want to insert those keywords. And again, every service or product is an opportunity to rank for that particular keyword, okay? The other thing you want to do is double check your broken links. So broken links are annoying, and oftentimes you can't really control them, because what happens is that you may at one point have linked to another article on another website. And maybe what happened is that article, that publisher, deleted that post, or they moved it, or they changed the URL. And so what's happening now is that you are linking to an error 404 page, right? And so Google is going to notice that. Your customers, your prospects are going to notice that. And not only are they going to find that annoying, but Google might de-rank you as a result, right? Because you're essentially providing a poor user experience, right? So updating your broken links, fixing those is a really easy thing to do that you guys should do maybe once a year at least, to make sure that you don't have any broken links on there. The next one that we already talked about is check for excessively large images. Your image sizes should be 100 kilobytes or lower, right? And that will help increase your page speed. The next one that you should do, and this is automatic if you're using Squarespace, Wix, or WordPress, or Shopify, or any of the other major ones, is that you should create a sitemap. And essentially the sitemap tells the Google spiders how your website is organized and what content is on all those pages. And again, if you're using any of the major website creators, you don't have to worry about this because it's done automatically, okay? Make sure your website is mobile optimized. That's a really, really important one because if you don't have a mobile optimized website, you are missing out on about 50% of the traffic. So as of about 2015, 50% of website users are on mobile devices. So if your website is too small and not optimized for mobile devices, people are not going to be able to read the words. They're not going to be able to click the buttons. They're not going to be able to see your phone number to call you. Maybe your phone number is not even clickable. That's going to be really frustrating for 50% of your users out there. And so you want to make sure that your website looks good on a mobile device, okay? So if you've done all of these things and you've added your keywords to every single page on your site and your H1 tags and your description tags and your blog posts and your body copy, and you've done everything else on here, then it's time to submit your website to Google Webmaster Tools. And essentially what that means is that you are signaling for Google's spiders to come back and reevaluate your website, right? So maybe they visited your website a couple of years ago when you first launched, and they realized that, hey, this website's good, but it's not optimized, it's loading slow, it doesn't have any keywords, we don't know what this website's about. This is your opportunity to tell Google to come back and reevaluate, okay? And again, Google Webmaster Tools is a free tool that anyone can use, and you can do this as often as you want. I think you could do it 100 times a year, okay? So anytime after you make a major update on your website, like you add a new page, or you optimize it in some way, or you add a new service, you should run your website through Google Webmaster Tools to get those spiders to come back, okay? That's the last step that you want to take in SEO, okay? All right, awesome. So there's some helpful screenshots here that I think you guys will find helpful, and I'm happy to send this presentation out to you guys afterwards. All right, so let's talk about backlinks really quick. So I'm going to show an example of what a backlink is. Looks like, Virginia, you've got a question about how do you make sure your website is mobile optimized? Good question. So on that report, there should be a section that says whether it's mobile optimized or not. But honestly, the best way to check is just to visit your website on your mobile device and look at it. Can you see the text? Are the buttons big enough that you can click them? If yes, then your website's mobile optimized. Okay. There's a more advanced tool that I can send you to. It's called Page Speed Insights. Let me just type that for you guys right there. Okay, so it's Page Speed Insights by Google, and that will tell you specifically if your website is mobile optimized or not. But honestly, the best way to do is just to look at it and you can see. Okay, all right, so backlinks. This is a backlink down here. So Danny Meyer, one of my favorite restaurateurs in New York City, he owns a bunch of restaurants, Grandmaster Tavern, in Manhattan. And he was recently featured last year by Pete Wells in New York Times in the food section. This is the best thing you could possibly hope for as a restaurant owner, right? If Pete Wells of the New York Times writes about you, that's a make or break moment for most businesses. Now, Danny Meyer is so well known that he doesn't really need the help of Pete Wells, right? He's going to do fine no matter what happens. The guy owns Shake Shack, all right? So he's fine. But for most restaurants, like Astoria Seafood, for example, if they got written up in the New York Times, that's a big deal for them. And an even bigger deal is if they got a backlink, right? So if the New York Times actually hyperlinked some of the text and then linked to Astoria Seafood's website, that would be a game changer for Astoria Seafood. Number one, they're going to get a ton of traffic because people are now going to become aware of the restaurant. But number two, Google is going to see that there's a backlink from New York Times, and that's going to help them rank higher on Google, okay? So how do you get backlinks? It's a good old-fashioned game of PR is what it comes down to, right? Are you able to persuade a publisher, whether a small blogger or a major news organization like the New York Times, to write about you, about something in some way, right? That's what it comes down to. How do you do that? How do you convince a news organization or a publisher to write about your business? For small businesses, it's about finding the right person within those publishers and finding something worth writing about, right? And so most often what you want to do is put together a press release or even write the article yourself and say, hey, I actually wrote this for you already. You don't have to do any work. You can just edit this down and publish this if you guys think your readers would be interested to read about this. And within that article, you can link to your own website so people can learn more about your business, right? That is the best way to actually encourage backlinks to happen. Now, of course, backlinks do happen naturally. There's a lot of businesses. In fact, Chaka, my colleague at Fiserv, has worked with a lot of other business owners in Brooklyn that have gotten a lot of press. And Chaka, I forget the name of her business, but I think it was in Fort Greene. And she does phenomenal with press. She gets mentioned in Elle magazine. She gets mentioned in Time Out. People just love writing about her. Either she's really good at PR or she just gets very lucky. I'm guessing
it was Jill Lindsay.
Yes, Jill Lindsay. Yes. Do you know the secret behind that, Chaka? What is her secret with that? Does she?
I don't know. She
okay.
Actually attended one of your sessions.
She did. Yeah, that's true. She did, so, yeah. That may or may not be the reason though, but yeah, I think that she just has really good products and services. It's a woman-owned business, so that obviously always goes a long way. And I think that she just runs a good business, and it's in a popular neighborhood. And I think that she probably spurs a lot of that on. I think she probably proactively reaches out to a lot of publishers. So if you guys want to check out a good website, Jill Lindsay is the one. You guys can Google that. She's in Fort Greene, but she's got a great website that's really well optimized. She's doing really well on Google, and she's done really well for press too. So something to model yourselves after, I think, a previous attendee of these webinars. Okay, all right, so that's backlinks. All right, so I'm gonna focus on content, and we're almost towards the end here. We've probably got like another 10 or 15 minutes with the presentation, so we're definitely more than halfway through. Content is really important. Number one, it provides opportunity for Google to rank you. So you always want to have content on your website, like I mentioned before. You want to be producing blog posts as often as you can. If you can do one blog post a month, that would be ideal, right? You can find something to write about once a month and spend an hour writing about it and then just post it on your website. That's going to provide fresh content for Google to rank you for, right? And I'm going to show you guys a live demonstration on how to find content ideas to write about, because it's not always easy to come up with those ideas. And I have a really, really interesting tool that you guys can use. So the way that you want to use your content is you want to post it on your blog, right? You don't want to go to like blogger.com/your business name. The blog should be on your website, okay? So you want to have it yourwebsite.com/blog, right? That's where the content should live, because otherwise your website's not benefiting from the content. And then once you've got that blog post published on your website, you want to take one or two sentences from that blog post and actually feature that in Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and then do an email blast, and then maybe even do a YouTube video about that blog post, right? And actually go into more depth about what that blog post is about, maybe doing a demonstration, maybe walking people through whatever that blog post is about, okay? So those are the tips for how to use content, and that's called content distribution. And it's a really powerful way to actually use your content on your website, okay? So I want to look at one example really quickly here. River Pools and Spas is a company that I've been following for a long time. They're based out of Virginia, and they do a fantastic job with content. So what they do is they write a blog post, and in this case, it's about how to cool your swimming pool in the summertime, right? Not a problem that I think most New Yorkers have. But if you're in Virginia or somewhere else where you have pools, it's probably a very common question, right? So this is something that maybe people are Googling, right? And they sell pool supplies. And so next thing you know, you find yourself on this website learning about how to cool your swimming pool in the summertime. And the next thing you know, you're buying chlorine, and you're buying a pool skimmer, and you're buying pool covers and pool toys from this company, okay? And that's the idea with content, is that everything is an opportunity for you to rank. So if a lot of people are searching for how to cool your swimming pool in the summertime, and you can show up in the #1 position for that, those are your potential customers. That's high prospect quality. You want those visitors on your website getting familiar with your products and services so you can potentially sell to them, right? And so this is the game of content that you play with digital marketing. Finding interesting things to write about that provides value, but also allows you to increase your traffic to your website, right? And so what they did is they wrote a whole article about this, and they took one sentence and they posted it on social media. And you can see right there, they're linking back to their website, right? So it's not a backlink, to be clear. This is on social media, so it doesn't count as a backlink. But what this is about is getting relevant traffic back to your website so they could potentially become a customer. And these guys took it a step above and beyond, and they actually filmed a short 4-minute video. That I would say is probably more than most business owners are willing or capable to do. And I would say that, that is not something that probably everyone wants to do. And yeah, Reed, yeah, you're noticing that it had 1 share and 151 views. Doesn't seem like a lot, but I think I took this screen capture maybe a day or 2 after it was posted. So this is, by now it probably has 10 times that, right? And so, yeah, this is something that people might want to share, right? If you've got a pool and your neighbors have pools and, your friends have pools, this is something you might want to share with your neighbors. And all of a sudden they're now aware of this company that they were never aware of before. So content can be very powerful, but it also helps you rank on Google as well. And you're going to get free traffic that way too. Okay, so I want to do a quick demo of answerthepublic.com. And this is one of my favorite tools out there. So I'm going to go to share my screen again. Sorry. Okay. So I'm going to go to answerthepublic.com. Can you guys see my web browser? Yeah, okay, thank you. So let's go to, let's see, I'm gonna type in, yeah, let's type in ice cream, right? Let's say I own an ice cream store, right? And I wanna write about ice cream. And I need ideas for blog posts. So the guy is doing a search and he's going to come back with a bunch of results. And these are all topics that people are searching for on Google, right? So this is pretty interesting. And again, this works for any topic you can possibly imagine. When was ice cream invented? That's a great blog post topic. If you're an ice cream store or an ice cream company, you want to write about interesting stuff that people want to know about. This is actually what people are searching for online as it relates to ice cream. When does ice cream melt? Depends on what the temperature is, probably. Let's see. Which ice cream is the healthiest, right? So if you're an ice cream store, you can write about which of your ice creams are the healthiest, and you might actually get traffic for that keyword. And of course, Google knows where most people are. So if you're searching for that and you're writing about this content in your local neighborhood, and that person happens to be in that neighborhood, you're probably going to show up number 1 for that keyword. So again, this is a great tool to use. It's free, and it gives you a lot of really good ideas to write about. And you can just pick one of these. And let me just show you an example. So I'll click on when was ice cream invented, and it'll pull up all the Google search results. All right, so that's pretty cool. So it looks like there's a BBC article in the UK about the origin of ice cream that's ranking number 1. IDFA, the history of ice cream. Wikipedia, of course. Foodtimeline.org. So a lot of organizations that are writing about these, not many businesses, but that's just one example of a blog post that you can write about. So anyway, I think that's pretty helpful. And I use that tool all the time when I'm trying to come up with ideas for blog posts. Okay, so that's Answer the Public. All right, so we'll get into a couple other things that you guys can do to increase your discoverability online. So aside from everything else that we talked about, which is all about SEO, there's something called Google Maps that you guys can use to increase your ranking online, okay? And this is really great for mobile device users, but also desktop users use Google Maps as well. It's free to sign up. You don't have to pay for this at all. All you have to do is go to google.com/business and you can sign your business up. You can respond to reviews. You can post your business hours. You can add your website as a link. You can add your address. You can add products and images to Google My Business. And it's a great way to just increase your discoverability, because as people are more actively using their mobile devices, and the maps features on their phones to find directions and find businesses, you want to be there, right? So if you're not on Google Maps, you might as well do it because it's free, right? The one thing I'll note about this is that you really have to have a physical location to be on here. So Google Maps, Apple Maps, and Yelp requires that you have a physical location. So that could mean if you're a jewelry maker, you could potentially list your home studio, right? And you could say that, hey, I don't accept walk-ins at this location, but this is where my business is based. And you could list your website where they can buy the product. That's a great way to get on the list, on the map, literally, for jewelry in New York City, okay? The next one is Apple Maps. And again, same thing as Google, it's free. Not as many users as Google, but still a very popular system. And then there's Yelp. This is probably the most popular directory system out there. And you can sign up for free at biz.yelp.com. Okay. The other way that you can increase discoverability online is by doing some advertisements on Facebook. So if you've never done Facebook or Instagram ads, Instagram is owned by Facebook. I really recommend it. You can do it for as little as $5 a day, right? You don't have to do it every day. You can maybe do it for a week as a test, and you spend $25 Monday through Friday in total to see how it does. And there's a couple different ways you could do this. The way that I recommend is what's referred to as boosted posts. And you can create a post on Facebook and Instagram, and then you could just boost it. And you could do some very, very basic targeting. And again, remember that slide about the conversion probability where I said that if you've never done advertising before, you may not be very good at it. Well, this is that example, right? So you really want to be careful about what you're doing. Be sure that you're targeting people in your geographic area that have interests that align with your type of business. So you can target based on geography, income, age, education, job title, a variety of things that you can use to target business owners. And you can do that all right through your Facebook app if you have a business account with Facebook and Instagram. Okay. And that can be done for as little as $5 a day. It's a really, really cost-effective way if you've got a small advertising budget to really increase your traffic to your site. All right. The other thing that Facebook and Instagram does really well is something called retargeting. So if you guys have ever been shopping for a product and then you don't buy it, but then the next day you see an advertisement for it, right? That's not just a coincidence. That's actually Facebook and Instagram working to help sell you something. And that's what's referred to as retargeting or remarketing. And essentially what that means is that Facebook and Instagram, if you install a piece of code on your website, they can track the visitors and they'll know what products they're looking at. And so that way, if they don't buy, they can show an advertisement to that visitor the next day, whether they're on the New York Times or some other website. Your ad could actually appear on the New York Times in the advertising section. And that would be a way for them to click, to see your product one more time. Maybe they, were making dinner and they had to run, they closed the laptop and they forgot, right? They in either case, they didn't complete the purchase. And this is a way to gently remind them, hey, I noticed that you were looking at this product. Do you want to buy it still? Here it is, right? And so that's remarketing. And that's a really effective way to increase your conversions on your site. All right. So a couple other things I want to talk about are the ways to improve your shopping experience on your website and in your store. And one way you can do that is through Clover, using Clover Rewards. So whether you're a cafe or a restaurant or whatever it is you do, you can offer rewards to your customers through your POS device. And the app that they would download on their site is actually called Perka, and they can collect rewards for coffees or food items at your restaurant. And you can do that all digitally right through your POS device on Clover, which is pretty cool. And that comes along with the Clover POS. Okay, I'm going to skip that. One thing that is really effective is email. And there's a variety of different ways that you can actually collect email addresses. One is by asking visitors for their email address when they're on your website. And you don't just want to ask them for their email address, right? Because no one's just going to give up their email address for nothing. They've got to get something for free. And this is what's referred to as a lead magnet. And a lead magnet is essentially giving something up for free to collect an email address. It could be an ebook, it could be a discount, it could be access to an exclusive event, or product releases, anything that gives people the feeling that they're in on something that no one else is, right? They're getting something for free that is special and unique to them. And in return, all they have to do is give up their email address, right? So this is one example that I'm showing here for an optometrist. She has posted on her website, Dispelling the 11 Myths of Hard Contact Lenses, right? And so if you're in the market for hard contact lenses, well, this is something that you might want to read. And so I might be willing to give up my email address to obtain that PDF so I can read all about this, right? So that's been very effective for this person. Okay. And then when you collect that email address, you can set up what's referred to as email automation through something like Constant Contact or MailChimp. And then you can automatically send out emails whenever someone subscribes to your list. So almost immediately, they'll receive the free ebook that they signed up for. They'll get that. And then maybe the next day or the next week, they'll get an email from you saying, hey, my name's Dr. Stephanie Wu, and I'm the optometrist. You requested my free ebook. If you have any questions about hard contact lenses or like to schedule an appointment, click here, right? And that's going to allow this optometrist to increase her registrations for her business, okay? Make sure it's helpful, relevant, and engaging. It can't just be, hey, give me your email address, right? It's got to be something of value. The other thing that I'll note is that you can actually do this through our POS devices. So through the point of sale systems that Clover offers, you can actually prompt people to give up their email address right on the device. This one that I'm showing here is called Clover Flex. I think this is probably the most incredible POS system that was ever designed. Number one, because it does so much. And the stuff that it does is not just like cool tricks, but it's actually really important stuff. So number one, it's a screen, it's a touch screen. So you can actually accept signatures right there. You don't have to touch a dirty pen. You don't have to sign a receipt. You could sign the screen on this device, which is pretty cool. Okay. Number two, it is a printer, right? So it does print receipts. So if you do have to give out a receipt for whatever reason, you can do that. One really amazing use case for this device that I've seen is I got my local cafe in Brooklyn and Greenpoint to sign up for this. And what would happen is during rush hour in the morning, they would have a line out the block, all right, down the block, out the door. And I said, this is ridiculous. You should, fix this. And one way you could do that is what's referred to as line busting, right? And you could do that with Clover POS, the Clover Flex device. And so what they did is they had a barista during the busy hour is they would go out there, take orders in line and give them the receipt, right? That had their name on it and their drink order. And so when the other barista inside was done making their drink, all they had to do was call the person's name and you didn't have to wait in line for 20 minutes, right? You could sit down on the bench and check your phone, right? Or talk to your neighbor or do whatever it is you want to do. And that actually dramatically increased the revenue for that business. I know for a fact, because I talk to the business owner often on my way to work and kind of check in and see how she's doing. And she uses this Clover Flex as a way to bust the lines and make the customers happier, right? So not standing in line for an hour is a great thing, or 20 minutes is great. But it also just helps her sell more product and more coffee in the morning. Okay. The other thing that Clover Flex does is that it's a barcode scanner. And the other really inventive use case I've seen for this is for a shoe store in Brooklyn. So I was shopping for shoes one time and I was, the person had a Clover Flex hooked onto their belt. They took it off and I was asking for a pair of shoes and they scanned the barcode. So instead of that shoe store owner having to go downstairs in the basement to check if they had my size of shoes, they were able to immediately, without leaving my side, tell me if they had my shoe size in stock or not, right? And that's going to dramatically increase the conversion for that store. Because if you leave the customer's side and disappear for 2 minutes, there's a really good chance that customer is going to get bored, walk out the door, right? They're going to get distracted, they're going to leave. But if you could hold on to that customer while you're checking for the inventory, there's a better chance that you're going to make that sale, right? So I thought that was really clever. And like I said, the Clover Flex does everything, right? So it's a touchscreen, it's a printer, receipt printer, it is a barcode scanner. And the battery on this thing, I believe, lasts for like more than 8 hours on a single charge. The other really good benefit for restaurants that I love is that you don't have to take the person's credit card and disappear right behind the counter, because I'm always worried about fraud. That always makes me nervous. You can sort of alleviate that fear at restaurants by just checking the person out right there at the table, which is pretty awesome. So a lot of great uses for Clover Flex. This is by far one of our most affordable POS devices that we have at the company. So if you guys are looking for an entry-level POS device, this is by far the one to go for because it does everything. Okay, that's it, guys. We're on to Q&A. So I will do my best to answer any questions. If you guys would like to stay in touch with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, just linkedin.com/in/Stephen Matt. But I will stay online here for the next few minutes and answer any questions. I did have 3 that were already typed up, so I'm going to go to those first. But if you guys do have any other questions, feel free to type them in or just start talking after I answer these. So number 1, I heard that SEO doesn't work right on template websites. Is that true? No, I would say that's not true. By template websites, I think you mean like pre-designed websites. No, that has nothing to do with it, right? It's really more about everything that I said tonight. So if you do everything in there, no matter if you're using a template website or not, it doesn't matter. You're still going to see success with your rankings on Google. Okay. Can we hire you or someone else in your company? Unfortunately, I'm doing this just on my own time. This is not what I do. I do marketing for Fiserv. I don't consult with businesses. I do these webinars for free because it provides value to the community. And we have a great program going called Back to Business. And we're trying to help businesses do better in our community. So that's why I'm doing this. Unfortunately, I don't consult with individual business owners, but feel free to message me and I'd be more than happy to point you in the right direction. I've worked with a lot of different companies in the past that do digital marketing, and I'd be more than happy to put you in touch with the right people. So what website gave you the common phrases? That was answerthepublic.com. All right, Steve, what's your email? I'm not going to give out my email on this webinar, but feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I just prefer to keep it professional on LinkedIn. We'll do that, and we can chat there. So if you guys have any other follow-up questions, feel free to do that on LinkedIn for sure. So I will open it up to any other questions, or if Jacqueline or Chaka or Tasneem wants to mention anything, I think now's the time. So.
I would like to invite Chaka Adams to join us.
Yeah, I'm here. Stephen, thank you. This was just an amazing webinar once again. You always amaze me. As many times as we walk through this, I still learn things too. And thank you all for attending. Thanks, Queen's Chamber, for having us, and thanks for all of the members for attending. I do want to point out that our company has grants available now for small business owners. So if you are interested in, you think that a $10,000 grant would help your business, please visit clover.com/grants. And I'll also put it in the chat. But we are offering small business owners a chance to be awarded a $10,000 grant, in addition to services like Stephen Matt's, different solutions that we have, different marketing services that we may be able to provide to you. And so you'll have all of the information that you need. There is a very small portal for submitting your application. It's only going to be open for a week. So if you can, I would definitely visit that website, clover.com/grants, as soon as possible and fill out it's a short registration form so that you will receive advance notification on when the grant is actually open. Well, thank you, Jackie. I see that you put it in there. I, however, am available via email, so you can also reach out to me directly, or you can go through Jackie and she knows how to get to me. So again, thank you all for attending. Please share this information that you've learned. I believe that it'll be available on the YouTube channel for Queen's Chamber, and possibly placed on the site. So, go back and really soak up this information. It's really useful, and putting it to work, like Stephen said, you will see results, almost immediately. So definitely do that. And we look forward to working with you all.
All right.
right, thank you everyone. On behalf of Queens Chamber of Commerce, we'd like to thank you everyone who attended today's event, as well as Stephen and Chaka. Thank you, Stephen, for such an informational webinar. I would also like to mention one more thing I already posted in the chat about a program called Chamber on the Go, where we can link you to different resources that the city provides, and we can give you the access to it. And I've posted the link to the survey. So all the small business owners, please feel free to fill that out. And by doing that, you also will be notified about more and more events like this that we continuously hold from our office. Yeah, so thank you again for joining, and we hope to see you in our future events.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Thank you, Steve.